Chris, who had just been released from prison, immediately wanted to visit his daughter. However, the driver plotted to kill Chris to seize his property.
Where's the money?
You've already been paid. In full.
Then he picked up the luggage from the ground. Chris searched the driver's pocket and took the car keys. Thanks to that, he did not have to walk anymore. Chris headed to the city where his daughter lived. He hid outside a villa. Not long after, the car carrying Alisa, the daughter of the mafia boss Vicente, left the villa. Realizing that the other party had gone far, Chris started to follow. He chased them all the way to the main road. When he stopped at a red light, Chris saw a beggar cleaning someone else's car window. He immediately came up with a bold idea. At the next intersection, when he stopped at a red light, Chris also disguised himself as a beggar and approached Alisa's car. The bodyguard inside the car kept signaling that he didn't need it, but Chris pretended not to see. When he finished, Chris tapped the glass. He signaled for payment. Seeing that the bodyguard still didn't respond, Chris suddenly smashed the rearview mirror.
Está siendo indigente de mierda.
In no time, he blocked Alisa's path. The girl panicked. Chris chased after her. Then he grabbed Alisa and stuffed her into the truck. He managed to drive away just a second before the bodyguard caught up. When Vicente knew that his daughter had been kidnapped, he was furious. He couldn't believe that someone would dare to take his daughter. He did not hesitate to hit the man with his stick. Vicente immediately ordered his men to spread the news of a reward for finding his daughter. Meanwhile, Chris was still driving Alisa out of the city. On the way, she was very stubborn. Alisa kept knocking on the truck. He had no choice but to stop the car. The two chased each other into the deep forest. Chris said that he had no bad intentions. Chris just wanted to talk to her. To prove it, he took out a photo. It was a photo of Chris with Alisa's parents. Seeing the photo, she was shocked. Alisa could not believe that her parents' friend would treat her like that. Chris explained that he had no choice. Her mother had told him to pick her up. The mother had died 5 years ago, and she had asked Chris to find Alisa and take her away from Vicente if anything happened. He talked a lot, but Chris still couldn't make Alisa stop doubting him. Finally, he gave her the gun as a way to prove his sincerity. Alisa still didn't believe the gun had bullets. She said she would try to shoot. As soon as they got in the car, she asked him to turn the car around immediately. Otherwise, Alisa would shoot. Chris didn't comply. He also didn't believe that she would dare to shoot for real. But this time, Chris was wrong. Alisa really pulled the trigger. Fortunately, there were no bullets in the gun. At that moment, the car reported that it was running out of fuel.
Shit!
When he got out of the car to refuel, Alisa turned her gaze towards the group of people repairing the car nearby. Taking advantage of Chris's inattention,
Hey guys, speak English?
Rómpelo.
English? Hey, back off!
Meanwhile, Alisa ran to a public phone booth. She intended to call her father for help.
Fuck off! Hey, leave it! Don't!
After knocking down all the people in his way, he turned back and saw that Alisa had already contacted Vicente. Chris cut the call and shoved Alisa back into the car. This time, he tied her hands to prevent her from causing any more trouble. Even though she was tied up, she still couldn't calm down.
Stop it! You want to go back inside the truck?
Who are you to tell me what to do, fuck?
I'm your father!
This made Chris speechless for a moment. He looked straight at her and said that he was Alisa's biological father. She was skeptical but began to waver. During the whole journey, no matter how much trouble Alisa had caused, Chris had never hit or hurt her. Maybe what he said was true. Chris took Alisa to a restaurant. For the first time, she didn't resist. Meanwhile, Vicente knew that his daughter was still alive, but he still had no clue where Alisa was. Not knowing that his close assistant was betraying him, he secretly provided information to Vicente's enemy. the assassin Corvo. Many years ago, for some reason, he had seriously injured Corvo. He even lost an arm. Vicente's assistant intended to replace him as the gang boss. He took advantage of this opportunity to help Corvo kidnap Alisa. The assistant would indirectly kill Vicente and pave the way for him to take power. During the meal at the restaurant, Alisa asked Chris where Chris had been all these years, if he was her father. He was a bit embarrassed.
It's complicated, right? 15 years.
Well, complicated.
Chris did not answer. He just stared at the diamond necklace around her neck. It was a gift Chris had given Alisa's mother on her birthday years ago. The mention of her mother made Alisa miss her so much.
Will you say that you're a liar?
I think Vicente killed her.
As soon as she finished speaking, the sound of a gun being loaded rang out. A group of armed men appeared. All of them were lured by Vicente's bounty. Alisa was forced out of the car to prevent Chris from pursuing. They opened fire, blowing out his tires. By the time Chris knocked out the attacker and rushed out, the attacker had already driven away. Not long after, they took Alisa to the territory of a small gang leader. After handing her over, they received a large sum of money. After the group left, Bona, the local boss, immediately informed Vicente. He said that he had found Alisa and gave her his phone. After confirming that his daughter was safe, he would come immediately. However, Alisa was in no hurry. On the contrary,
Do you have anything to do with Mama's death?
the question stunned him. After a moment of thought, Vicente denied it. He had done everything for her mother, but he did not understand why she had left this world.
He says that he's my real father.
After checking the camera, Bona discovered that someone was killing his subordinates. Not wanting others to steal the reward, Bona hit Alisa. The intruder was none other than Corvo. Even though he only had one arm, his fighting power had not decreased, but had become even more terrifying than before. Dozens of Bona's subordinates fell one after another. Bona was panicked by the opponent. He returned to his room to call for reinforcements. The subordinates outside were completely destroyed by Corvo. They were no longer able to fight back. Alisa picked up Bona's gun. She intended to attack Corvo from behind. Unfortunately, Alisa was discovered by him. That there was a dead end ahead. Corvo had caught up. As soon as they stood up, Bona opened fire on them. Bullets flew densely, sparks and sparks flying everywhere. Chris desperately jumped out of the window to avoid the bullets. Bona turned his gun on Corvo. Corvo approached. He removed his prosthetic arm. Alisa was very brave. The collision she created gave them a chance to survive. Not long after, Vicente led his men to arrive, but it was too late. There were only corpses scattered, no survivors. Everyone was killed. In Bona's office, he saw Corvo's image on the surveillance screen. The shadow of the past still haunted Vicente's mind. The rescue of his daughter became much more difficult. Chris and Alisa escaped. He intended to tell her about the past between Chris and Alisa's mother, but when Vicente was mentioned, they argued again. Alisa still did not believe that he was involved in her mother's death. Even though Chris said that he had to serve 15 years in prison because of Vicente, she thought he was making things up. Chris understood that if Alisa wanted to realize the truth, he needed solid evidence. On the way, Chris recounted the past stories of the three of them. They used to be close associates, working well together. They had robbed banks and stolen antiques without ever failing. When he found out about Alisa, Chris panicked because the three of them had been spending recklessly and had no savings. To make Alisa's birth easier, they had decided to carry out one last heist and then retreat to live incognito. The heist had gone smoothly, and the money had been enough for them to live comfortably for the rest of their lives. Alisa asked Chris why he was arrested. Chris replied that Vicente had set him up. Vicente had intentionally left clues at the scene, leading straight to Chris's house, which led to Chris's arrest and 15 years in prison. However, that did not prove that Vicente was the one who killed her mother. Up to this point, Alisa still believed that he had not harmed her mother. The conversation ended on a gloomy note. Not long after, Corvo woke up next to the car that had hit him. Corvo followed the trail of blood to a nearby restroom. Although the collision was not fatal, it still left a large gash on his forehead. Corvo calmly used a needle and thread to sew up the wound. He seemed to be repairing a mechanical part without showing any emotion or pain. As soon as he stepped out of the restroom, Corvo heard the two men in the car next to him talking about him. He was not angry, but slowly walked closer. The two had no idea that standing before them was a living nightmare, thinking that their numbers would be enough to overpower him, but they were wrong. Corvo easily took the car from them and started driving to find Chris and Alisa until late at night. Meanwhile, to protect Alisa, Chris stole a car from the side of the road. Chris planned to take her to his sister's house in America to take refuge. Although the living conditions would be worse, at least they could keep their lives. However, Alisa flatly refused.
I like where I live, I like my school, I like my friends.
I know him, okay? I know what he's capable
So
of.
do I! Leave again, not even try to be a good father!
Chris was speechless when he heard that. He was worried but didn't know how to explain. At that moment, the owner of the car returned.
You personal vendetta with Vicente.
She jumped out of the car. He angrily pulled out a gun and pointed it at car owner. Chris didn't notice that Alisa had taken the opportunity to get into the driver's seat. He could only roar angrily in the middle of the road. Chris saw a yellow car approaching. He rushed out to block it, but the driver had no intention of stopping, dodging in a flash. As for Alisa, after creating a safe distance from him, she stopped the car on the side of the road to call Vicente to pick her up. When Alisa saw clearly who was in the car, fear arose. It was Corvo. She panicked and ran away. Corvo followed closely behind. Alisa grabbed a tool and hid. Alisa underestimated Corvo's cruelty. A small girl was absolutely no match for this cold-hearted killer. Corvo had a strange habit. Before killing his target, he always gave them an apple, and this time was no exception. Corvo handed the apple to Alisa. The girl bravely took it and took a big bite. He smiled happily as he watched Alisa chew. But then,
Fuck you, psycho!
Alisa burst into a run. She wanted to escape from the nightmare. At that moment, Alisa heard Chris calling her name. But when Alisa saw Chris, Corvo had already appeared behind her. Corvo completely controlled the situation. He took Alisa hostage. Her whole body trembled with fear. Chris had no choice but to throw away her weapon and surrender.
Okay.
Without any weapons, both of them became prey.
Is Alisa okay?
Corvo used rope to tie Alisa to the car, and then he tied Chris. Corvo knocked him down with the butt of his gun. He wanted to know who was blocking his way.
Who are you?
Hearing this, Corvo was slightly surprised. After taking a closer look at Chris, he knocked him unconscious. When Chris woke up, he was hanging upside down on a large tree in front of an abandoned church. Vicente arrived. Apparently, Corvo had informed him. The two of them, who were once as close as blood relatives, had now become sworn enemies. Vicente intended to take this opportunity to kill Chris. In his eyes, Chris's existence was only a threat to the relationship between Vicente and Alisa. However, after a moment of thought, he decided to keep Chris. Vicente ordered his subordinates to put him down. Perhaps Chris still had value to exploit. On the way back, Vicente received a call from Corvo. He told Vicente to go to the place where Chris had had his hand cut off. That was where Vicente's daughter was being held. "Thank your assistant." Hearing that, Vicente exploded in anger. Vicente had never been merciful to traitors. Chris was curious about the grudge between him and Corvo. Vicente slowly recounted. Years ago, he had hired Corvo to carry out a mission, but Corvo had overstepped his bounds. He had leaked information that put Vicente in danger. He had immediately sent 15 elite men to eliminate Corvo. As a result, all 15 had died, and Corvo had only lost one arm. Chris's expression became even more serious after hearing this. Not long after, the car carrying them arrived at the appointed location. Vicente divided his men into 3 groups to search for traces of his daughter. Chris quietly sneaked into the abandoned factory. However, Vicente's men were too weak. He only heard a few screams and then fell silent. Vicente followed the sound to the place. He found a body hanging in the air and another body on the ground. When Vicente bent down to examine it, he escorted Vicente down the deserted hallway until he found Alisa, who was being held captive. The father and daughter saw each other, overjoyed, but the scene before them shocked Vicente. Corvo activated the system. The chains began to slowly tighten, pulling Alisa closer to the crusher. Her shrill screams made Chris discover her location. Vicente took the opportunity to rush to the top of the conveyor belt to try to turn off the machine. But when he got closer, Vicente frantically pressed all the switches, but to no avail. He used an iron bar to block the machine, but it didn't work. In desperation, Vicente picked up a saw and prepared to cut off his daughter's hand to save her life. However, he couldn't do it. Meanwhile, Chris was agile, but he was no match for the opponent's mechanical arm. Corvo laughed and said that Chris thought Vicente had killed Alisa's mother. Hearing this, Chris flew into a rage. He attacked fiercely. The anger made Chris ignore his defense. Chris immediately rushed towards Alisa, but he didn't let go easily. Corvo got up, chased after, and continued to attack Chris. Alisa's body was already dragged to the edge of the crusher. In the dangerous moment, Chris was forced to stop and continue fighting. Corvo's knife stabbed into his stomach, causing Chris to collapse. Alisa cried out in despair. He turned to grab Vicente. Corvo held the knife to his neck. He made a condition. If Vicente told his daughter the truth, Corvo would reveal how to stop the crusher. Under the pressure of the knife, he trembled and confessed. Vicente said that Alisa's mother had wanted to take her away from him. He admitted that he had paid Corvo to kill his wife. The confession completely destroyed Alisa. Just as the crusher was about to swallow her, at the most dangerous moment, Alisa snatched the necklace and threw it into the machine. The two fell together. Their bodies hit the ground hard, but it was unclear whether they lived or died. Seeing Chris covered in injuries, but still trying to protect her to the end, Alisa finally opened her heart. The girl realized that this man had put his life aside just to protect her. Alisa's heart was deeply moved. After all, she and Chris went to visit their mother's grave at the cemetery. Although Chris was seriously injured, he miraculously survived. Perhaps fate could not bear to let the reunited father and son be separated again. Now, they would rely on each other, starting a new peaceful and happy life. The movie ends here. Thank you for watching, goodbye, and see you again.